Who's the guy with all the dirt on Hollywood's biggest scandals?
I'm Benza, and I'll flip you. Heads I win, tails you lose.
What does he know?
Let me tell you something. You haven't lived until you've been thrown out of an orgy for being too funny.
Sometimes you gotta go to an author, TV host, and bigger-than-life personality to learn fame is a bitch.
Friday, December 15th, 2017. Whole lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff happening. All of us guys who haven't been acting right, who've been a little sloppy, not attentive enough at home, maybe you got a bad temper like me, maybe you're aloof or moody, whatever it is, listen to me. We got 15 days to get our shit right and get it together, because 2018 is going to be very different than 2017. And it's already started. In the last 2 months, it feels like we've all aged 5 years. We haven't. But we can all see where the world is headed, where the culture is going, where the dynamic at work and home is headed. Whether you like it or not, Beyonce was right. Girls run the world. But, I run this podcast. So, with apologies to all you baby dolls out there, I still got to call things like I see them. I'm Benza, and this is Fame is a Bitch.
I spend a lot of time in the backyard, and in '09 it was me, your fire pit, that accidentally started a wildfire when one of my embers landed on dry brush.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Yeah, it's a lot going on. A few nights ago, I sat with Mike Tyson and did his podcast, Bite the Mic, which is also from Workhouse Connect, the same company that runs my podcast. And Mike's show is really good. Peter Rosenberg hosts the show. Mike chimes in a lot. He ain't the Mike Tyson that was threatening to eat men's children, shit like that. That guy's gone, thank God, because that guy inside Mike was killing him. His ultimate opponent was himself. But when you sit next to Mike and you look at those hands, man, those hands, the damage those hands did, they're huge. I told Mike a bunch of years ago when he was fighting some of those suckers who didn't last 15 seconds with him. One night he was fighting somebody with the last name Etienne. I forget his first name. Clifford, I forget. Some black French guy. Had a bunch of friends at my house. We were all getting high. And as the fight was starting out, we had our drinks set. We had some weed. A few of us had some lines set out. And I had one friend who got there late and wanted to make a drink. And this is when the referees are talking to both fighters right before the fight. And he wants to grab the Coke and go in the bathroom and do his bumps before the fight. And I go, what are you doing? You can't leave now. He's like, bro, I'll be quick. So he's in the bathroom. Between the first and second bump, Tyson destroyed this fucking boxer with a left hook that really could have killed a horse. So my friend comes out all excited. I'm like, sorry, bro, fight's over. It's over. But that was Mike, man. So Mike and I are reminiscing about New York City in the 90s and really energetic. It was a great time, beautiful city. And we were talking about the rappers that came up during those years, the hip-hop artists, Tupac, Nas, A Tribe Called Quest, Black Sheep. There's so many. But the other night, he asked me, he goes, what were the finest girls that I remembered running around with in New York City in the 90s? And I said, oh, man. I said, nobody gets your attention like Naomi Campbell. I mean, she could get you to do anything. If Naomi acted like she liked you, you were through. And I'm saying this because I had a story way back then. And I knew I'd never write it because I didn't want Tyson on my ass, so mad at me. But I knew that Naomi made a beeline at him when he was a champ. And she gets what she wants. And I heard the first night she met him at someone else's dinner at a uptown restaurant, I heard before the entrees were over, they ended up in the bathroom and they went at it. I heard Naomi was Mike's real weakness. It wasn't Holyfield, it was Naomi. So I kept mentioning her name and glancing at him, and he was softly smiling, and I heard him whisper, yeah, Naomi. I go, did you know her, Mike? He goes, you could say that. I said, Mike, I know exactly how well you knew her, bro. I knew everything, but I ain't stupid. I don't need you on my ass. And he kind of laughed. So during the show, he mentioned that at one point in his life, he had 88 cars, but he couldn't remember 5 of them that he really liked. I said, can a man forget having one Naomi Campbell? He goes, no chance of that. So the week was going great. Not too often you get to hang with the former champ, former baddest man on the planet. But I had no idea at the time I was about to go away for a while. I got thrown in Twitter jail for something I said. I gotten 12-hour suspensions before, no big deal. Those are almost like a relief Good. I don't have to check Twitter for half a day. But this one was different. So I look at my phone and I see I got 0 followers and 0 people following me. And my heart sank, which is fucking pathetic when you think about it, which is why I don't think about it. But it turns out I did a 4-day stretch. I was locked in Twitter's Supermax Correctional Facility. And, I did what I had to do to survive, man. But it's so weird when you're locked up. Your friends are hitting you up on Instagram and Facebook, and they're texting me like, yo, what happened? You okay? You want me to say anything for anybody? You sure you're cool, bro? Hey, anything you need, I'm here for you. Anything. It's fucking hysterical. Guys, I'll be all right. I still got phone privileges. I can eat when I want. I still have cable. I'm not making atomic hot dogs or grilled cheese sandwiches on 2 irons turned upside down. I had an uncle who did a lot of time, Uncle Donnie, big mafioso from Brooklyn. And he was doing a stretch in Victorville prison out here in California. He used to make Sunday dinners, big pasta meals for about 15 guys in the joint, and they'd all watch football together, the NFL. But listen how he did it. This is brilliant. He got a big pot from the kitchen, and he fills it with water. Okay. Then he removed the heating coils from the bottoms of coffee machines, the ones that percolate, not the ones that drip. And he'd sink those coils in the water to make the water boil. It took a while. Meanwhile, as the water's coming to a boil, he'd slice up garlic real thin. He'd take pieces of broccoli, which I love, and he put that on an aluminum pan with slits on the bottom of it. And he put that pan on top of the boiling water. So now the broccoli and the garlic is slowly steaming, right? And he put peppers on there, zucchini, whatever the hell the guys like. So now when the water boils, he dropped the pasta and he cooks it, no problem. But to strain the pasta, he took a pillow sheet and sliced holes in it. So when you pour the pasta in, the water would drain into the toilet and the pasta is nice and cooked in the sheet. Empty the sheet into the pot, drop the broccoli and garlic on top. Pfft, what a meal. This is the way they ate every Sunday. And they'd watch football together. Anyhow, I didn't have to do that in Twitter jail, okay? I was home. I was fine. But let me thank all you who reached out during those 4 days. But let me tell you how I got pinched. You're going to love this. Remember that female artist I told you about whose artwork was owned by that shithead Tony Podesta? Her name was Kim Noble. And it was widely reported some of her work, which is sick pedophilia shit, was connected to Pizzagate, that joint in Washington, D.C. And the one picture I commented on, which is a big man screwing a little child while other adults are standing there watching. It's a fucking horror show. Anyhow, she sends me a tweet. Do your research. It's not true. I couldn't even decipher the rest of what she said. She sounds like a crazy person. So I had no idea who this was. And I'm looking, and then her name hits me. I go, holy shit, Kim Noble. So I send her a photo of the exact painting and ask her, is this yours? She says, yes, but it was painted from the angle of what it feels like for the person being abused. I said, it don't come across that way. She goes, if you've ever been abused, then you'd get it. And you can't argue with anyone who's had that kind of horror happen to them, right? So I go, listen, I'm very sorry that happened to you, okay? But now she starts sending me tweets every 3 seconds, like a nut. I never sold anything to Podesta. This has all been disproved. Have nothing to do with Pizzagate. Finally, I said, look, I respect that you're an artist and you have a right to paint your pain, but don't you realize these paintings are like crack cocaine to pedophiles around the world? They don't have to own your painting. All they got to do is screenshot it and blow it up. There's a lot they can do with that, trust me. But this is tricky because I don't want to censor any artist. You know what I mean? So she's like, what would you know? I don't have to explain myself to you. And she goes on and on. Then I finally said, you know what? Next time you want to paint a picture of a little kid getting fucked by a big adult, stick the paintbrush in your eyeball instead. That's what did it. Twitter deemed that a threat. And I didn't even want to argue with them and say, look, if I said I'd stick the brush in her eye, that would be a threat. Not telling someone to do it to themselves. But that's where we're at now. That's Big Brother right now, man. Even given the time I said it and the time they officially locked me up, which was about 9 hours. So they basically sided with pedophiles or an artist who likes to paint images of pedophilia. Remember what I told you. The whole fucking world is changing in the time it takes to cook asparagus. So afterward, I go online to look more closely at her work. And I did see articles that stated her work is not part of Pizzagate. But there are articles that show her work as part of Podesta's huge collection of sick shit. And the articles also state that the 50-year-old artist has dissociative identity disorder, another fucking disease we don't need. DID, it's called, which means she's, in effect, a bunch of different people all wrapped up in one body, like Sybil. And the exact number of people is unknown. So apparently, everything came undone in her adolescence. After she kept overdosing on pills and shit, she was placed on suicide watch in a psychiatric hospital. And that was the first of a lot of internments. And each time she was released, she'd try to kill herself again, and she'd get readmitted. Then, of course, she develops anorexia and bulimia. Then in her late 20s, she kind of evens out because, listen to this, one of her immensely capable personalities, a woman named Haley, was able to allow Kim to hold down a job as a van driver for 5 years. But one day, something must have caused a switch in her fucking brain, and a disturbed personality kicked in named Julie. So Julie is suddenly driving the van, and she plows straight into a line of parked cars. This, of course, led to her being diagnosed with schizophrenia. So eventually Kim reemerges from the hospital, and her story took another dramatic twist. Somehow, she says she found herself exposed to the activities of a pedophile ring. And when she reported it to the police, she received anonymous warnings to be quiet. And those threats escalated until one day a guy threw acid in her face and somebody tried to light her bed on fire while she was in it. Now, Kim got out, but the house was gutted. But when you see a photo of Kim Noble, there are no scars on her face from the acid attack. So the whole thing is either weird or bullshit. But these personalities are very distinct with their own names. They got their own ages and quirks of temperament. Their attitudes are different, what have you. And by the way, some are kids, some are guys. So for a journalist, this presents a lot of problems. Kim Noble herself is just a name on a birth certificate. So for all I know, that wasn't even Kim tweeting me. It could have been Judy or Kevin or a little boy named Taco. But that's only one of the many nuts I've met on Twitter. I'm AJ Benza, and this is Fame is a Bitch. So a few nights ago, I'm watching Forrest Gump on TV, and I love this movie. I mean, it's just one of the best films ever made. It's a love story, it's a mystery, it's a drama, it's a comedy. It's got the best soundtrack ever. It's just the best. And there are so many undertones in that film, man. There are hardcore messages that some people don't even realize the first time or two they see the movie. I'll tell you something right now. I've lived a very lucky and ironic life, just like Forrest Gump. I don't know how, but I've somehow managed to pop up in the lives of a lot of famous, dangerous, influential people that I can't believe it sometimes. And I really can't. I've been the guy in the scene next to the rock star or the president or the princess or the killer. So I have an odd kinship with that film and that character. So I'm watching Gump, but I'm also putting up Christmas lights and decorations out of boxes and shit. So I'm trying to get my kids to sit still and watch it, you know? But it's hard nowadays with all the shit they got. And I'm saying, listen to me. Guys, you have no idea the lessons in life this film offers you. I'm going, listen, it may be 10 or 20 years, but one day, some of the dialogue in this film is going to spin your head around until you realize your father knew what he was talking about. Now, they don't know it yet, but it's like that saying my father had on his coffee cup. The older I get, the smarter my kids become. And that's so true, man. But lately it seems we're all getting older, but not all of us are getting smarter. So the kids scatter, and I finish the movie. Then I start scrolling through Twitter again, and I see this tweet. And it's pretty alarming, and it's the kind of shit that's happening a lot now. And listen, as you all know, I'm not sticking up for any sick prick who preys on kids. I don't care who it is. But I try and reserve my toughest judgment until I see some kind of proof, something. Like in the case of the USA girls gymnastic team, where that creep coach was accused by several of the girls, pretty much all of them, that he molested them and touched them and shit. I could see that prick was a predator a mile away. Come on, not for nothing. How about we start posting pictures and resumes of grown men who want to apply for any jobs that place them very close to young boys and girls, okay? Especially if those kids are going to be wearing tight, revealing clothes, or if they're expected to be left alone with the guy for hours on end behind locked doors, okay? If I, as a grown man, could see these men or applicants ahead of time, I could cut the Reddit pedophilia in fucking half, okay? I see these creeps a mile away. Isn't it that obvious to you? Is it just me? And you know what? The best thing would be to have girls who were once abused go over people's pictures and resumes. We could stamp out pedophilia overnight because they know the look. Anyhow, look, I'm strolling through Twitter and I see a post from a woman with a really smug profile picture that says, it's time we start asking questions about Tom Hanks. What the fuck? Tom Hanks? Woody? Captain Phillips? No, can't be. Not David S. Pumpkins. Bullshit. Exactly what type of witch hunt is this, ladies? So apparently this woman named Sarah Ruth Ashcraft, who describes herself as a survivor of child porn, ritual abuse, mind control, and sex trafficking. She calls herself a philosopher by education, a truth warrior by divine. And she runs under the hashtag Say Brave Things and, ironically, Make America Great Again. So she's been speaking for about a week on Twitter. I've been following her, checking her out. It's getting creepy out there, guys. So she is apparently speaking about a pedophile cabal under the hashtag It Ends Now. Another tweet that caught my eye, and thousands of other eyes, was what she further said of Tom Hanks. He plays the nice guy so well. He's even sweet to the little girls he plays with. But it's not nice to play with little girls or let them rent his little boy. He's a pedophile who keeps company with other pedophiles. Holy shit. Then she goes, the reasons why my family and Tom Hanks and Hillary Rodham Clinton and the Roper School, the Michigan Democratic Party, and many others are not pursuing legal action against me is because I say brave things and reveal the truth, get this, of the Hivite, Luciferian, occultist, pedo-rapist, cannibal human sacrificers. Fucking nut. Her reasoning of why they don't sue her is because she could get depositions under oath and they maybe get charged with crimes. What do we do with people like this? I don't know. But suddenly, the most insane-sounding victims are chiming in and coming in real fucking hot, too. And this woman has a crowd of people behind her. And the shit they're talking is very deep, very disturbing. I mean, she talks about the Roper School, all right, where John Conyers' son attended. She says it's where pedophiles are groomed. She says her father and uncles were all her molesters. She says she was 8 when she first encountered Hillary Clinton as part of an occult ritual abuse event. And that tweet was in response to Juanita Broderick, remember her? Tweeting, I was 35 when Bill Clinton, then Arkansas Attorney General, raped me, and Hillary Clinton tried to silence me. I'm 73 now. It never goes away. So Ashcraft says she's keeping faith these crimes will come to light and the perpetrators will be held fully accountable. And trust me, you don't want to know the fucking rabbit hole her story sinks into. Oh, my God. She talks about something called the Hivites, which she says are all terrorists in the world, including ISIS, Antifa, every other deep state ever. They're all part of an ancient Babylonian cult family who've dominated on Earth since biblical times, 6,000 plus years. And she says they descend directly from the Garden of Eden through Cain's line. She says Cain was the first murderer, and the Hivites' mantra is murder is death, death is murder, meaning that none of them die a natural death. Everybody in the cult is murdered because they aim to overturn everything that is natural. And the stuff she lists on Twitter about the Hivites gets so fucking confusing and twisted, I wanted to poke my eyes out. The Hivite cult targets blonde kids, which has something to do with the mythology that kids with golden hair are closer to God. And interestingly enough, in a lot of her tweets, she also tags Trump, NSA, DHS, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Judge Deneen, and Alex Jones. And listen, some of the shit she says gives light to Pizzagate and the Podestas and the Clintons and all that dark, deep shit. So you know I want to accept what she's saying. I really do, but it ain't easy. Look, maybe this woman was molested when she was young. Who's to say? But when I reached out to her 3 times to have her agree on an interview and help her get the word out, she wouldn't do it. She told me, I still have a long way to go to recover all of my memories. I remember enough to know what happened to me, and I remember people who were involved, but I'm not going to make any statement beyond what I've remembered. I'm here to speak truths about my life, not to speculate. But that's exactly what she's doing with Tom Hanks, speculating. If you can't prove it, shut your fucking mouth. But she's like a lot of other women in that respect. Maybe not a lot. Some. Some would just put the hand up and the man goes down and the world continues to spin out of control. Now, listen, if she was saying these things on Twitter into a void, I wouldn't even give her name any credence. But she's got all sorts of crazy bastards chiming in. This isn't one hand clapping. This is the thunderous applause of a country and a culture suddenly drunk on a new power. For all you men who've abused women and put them in disgustingly compromising positions, good, fuck you. How does it feel when you get roofied and you wake up and you don't know what the fuck happened? But for all those men who are innocent and just getting screwed, I really feel for you. If we check the scoreboard over the last few days, Russell Simmons went from 4 women saying he raped them to 9 women saying he raped them. It's quite a jump. But Iron Chef Mario Batali, a man they call the Red Menace, surged to the top of the leaderboard when a shitload of former employees and other people stepped up and told some gross stories about his behavior inside his kitchens. And I got to say, I'm not surprised to hear about Mario. I'm surprised more chefs around the country aren't getting flambéed and bruleed by women they employ. Kitchens are notorious for having all sorts of shit going on. Kitchen staff, they work their asses off all night long and finally get to let their hair down at 1, 2, or 3 in the morning, and they're wide awake. And generally, there are other restaurants or bars that stay open till 5 or 6 or 7 a.m. just to accommodate the staffs from trendy restaurants. I don't think I knew a chef in the 90s who wasn't cooking high. I mean, their kitchens are notorious for having Coke and alcohol and all sorts of pain pills back there. When your restaurant is number one and you're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a week, you can't have nothing stop you from pumping out dinners. Nothing. Alliances are formed up front. In the back, they're formed. Romances start and stop every few weeks. There was a phrase, hands off the hostess, in New York. That was common knowledge back in the day. That meant that the owner or the chef was banging her. Way back in 1992, I had a publicist beg me to eat with her at a client's little restaurant in Greenwich Village. It was called Rocco's, a little Italian joint on Sullivan Street. And she kept bragging about the chef, pretty much unknown guy named Mario Batali, who'd just come back from some fancy apprenticeship in Italy. And the food was amazing. His style was impeccable. Unforgettable. And at one point, he invites me back to the kitchen, and I watched a guy cut lines of Coke with a fillet knife on a cutting board. Then he took off his orange rubber clogs, and he put them in the dishwasher to clean them, along with pots and pans. So the next day, I wrote an item in my column about this guy in the restaurant, but I didn't write about how great the food was. I wrote about how eccentric he was. I wrote about the orange shoes in the dishwasher. The publicist calls me up almost crying. Why didn't you write about our great meal? I said, Maria, this guy's going to go down as one of the greatest chefs in the city. There are dozens of them, but nobody puts their shoes in the fucking dishwasher. I said, that's what people are going to remember about Mario Batali 20 years from now. I was kind of wrong, unfortunately. But in the years that followed that night in the village, I saw Batali open up hotspots, Babbo, Po, Italy, Mazza out here in Los Angeles. He had 4 or 5 TV shows, cookbooks, the whole empire, worth about $250 million. Now, Mario copped to all his bullshit. And I think he'll weather the storm because, listen, after all, people got to eat. And they love to eat his food. But the one guy that got shot down last week that really burns my ass is Steve Edwards, the host of Good Day L.A. If you ever lived in L.A. or visited, this is the show you woke up to in the morning. It was a local news show, but it was Steve Edwards, a guy who's been a pro for decades. He sat in the middle of 2 hotties, Dorothy Lucy, who came from covering hard news in New York, and Jillian Barbary, who arrived from Miami with her sexy weather girl routine. But the banter between these three, and the fact that Steve would stay level-headed in the middle of those 2 funny women, I'm telling you, it made the show must-see TV. It lasted 20 years until the network fucked it up a few years ago and fired Dorothy and Jillian and replaced them with 2 younger women with 0 personality, 0 chemistry with Steve. They just fucked it up. I call it fingerprints. Every few years, some new bosses come in and they want to put their fingerprints on an existing hit show they had nothing to do with. But they change the dynamic and they just fuck things up. So I turned on the radio the other day, KABC out here in L.A., and I hear Jillian Barbary crying her eyes out. I thought somebody died. I'm driving the kids home from school, and my kids know that Jillian's a friend of mine, and they're saying, Daddy, text her, see what she's crying about. And then she goes and says, Steve Edwards fired over sexual allegations. And I got to tell you, as important as this Me Too movement is for women, Whoever these anonymous fucking women are who just got Steve pinched, they might have made everything jump the shark. I saw some small Twitter exchanges between an ex-Fox field reporter named Jennifer Marquez and some other frightened, timid little mouse. You'll know Marquez when you see her face. She's a nobody. She's a talking headshot. She got upset one time when she told Steve that she'd been laid off from her Good Day LA gig. And Steve shot back, I'd never been fired from a job. Well, that speaks to the man's talents and professionalism. That's almost impossible in journalism, to never be fired from a job. Well, Miss Marquez, the talking headshot, Miss Cellophane, she found that scary. She wrote what Steve said to a friend, and she goes, Steve absolutely scared me. He said, I had never been fired from a job, with a sinister smile. And her shithead friend goes, he said that to you? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for such treatment. I had no idea, as many never do. This is what we're dealing with now. If this talk scares you, you need to go home, swallow a bottle of Vicodin, a bottle of Xanax, get into bed, pull the covers over your fucking head, and wait. It's women like her who put all sorts of dents and dings in feminism. And you act like men don't like women. It's so not true. We just don't like ones that give women a bad name. Now, a lot of women should be disgusted with this chick more than I am. And let her hear it. Suzanne Marquez, the talking headshot. And I spoke to Jillian afterward, and she goes, AJ, not in 20 years together, through 2 marriages, 2 divorces, giving birth to 2 kids, has Steve ever done or said anything remotely close to harassment. She said she spoke to Steve, and she can't say anything. I get that. But she made it sound like what these women are claiming went down is so fucking minute, her jaw dropped. I was like dumbfounded when I heard it. My wife says the Fox network execs probably didn't want to pay Steve on any further contracts, and she may be right. But many years ago, a guest came on Good Day LA, and after his interview, he texted Jillian a dick pic. I told Jillian she should get in touch with Fox executives and hold them over a barrel. Bring back Steve, or I'll sue the whole network for employing me in an atmosphere in which I felt sexually harassed and violated. I said, tell him you got PTSD ever since. But she won't do it because she's cool, and she's gorgeous, and if Steve Edwards were going to get frisky with anyone over there at Good Day, the fact that it wasn't Jillian makes this whole scenario stink like shit. And I know you're wondering who sent the dick pic. I'll just say he has 2 first names as his formal name, and he's won more than 3 NBA titles, and he was a Laker once. I'm AJ Benza, and this is Fame is a Bitch. I'm on the phone last night, December 14th, and a buddy of mine tells me, yo, I heard Aziz Ansari is next to go down. Now, I don't know what he did or what he didn't do or what girl is leveling charges or girls, but this is what guys are talking about now. This is what this shit has done to us. We're sitting there in our beds with the windows closed and the blinds drawn, and we're racking our brains trying to remember every date, every interaction we ever had with a girl. I'm currently on March 1997, when I was 35, and I remember that was a very good year. And just like Sinatra sang in his song, when I was 35, it was a very good year. It was a very good year for blue-blooded girls of independent means. We'd ride in limousines. Their chauffeurs would drive when I was 35. Yeah, you can't do that anymore. I'm AJ Benza, upset over the obvious that men can no longer live like Sinatra, and sad over the fact that fame is a bitch.